Hey guys, welcome to Red50. Thank you for tuning in to another video. If you're new to the channel, thank you for stopping by. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on a future video. So, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about 5 reasons why I think the Mustang Ecoboost is better than the Mustang GT. I personally own a 2019 Mustang GT Premium. I've had it for about 2.5 years and I absolutely love this car. But I recently had a chance to drive a 2020 Mustang Ecoboost Premium for about 1 week or so. Now, of course, the GT is better overall as it's a step up in performance. However, I just feel like there are 5 things why the Mustang Ecoboost just makes more sense, and one of the reasons is actually related to performance, believe it or not. So let's dive right into the video and let's talk about the first reason why I think the Mustang Ecoboost is better than Mustang GT, and that is a pretty obvious one, is the price point. The Mustang Ecoboost is going to have a lower entry price compared to the Mustang GT. If you're looking at the base trims, you're looking about $27,000 for the base Mustang Ecoboost versus about $36,000 for the base Mustang GT. Now, these differences do carry over if you were to equip it with the premium version or even the premium plus. So the difference is about $9,000 give or take. Now, especially for a base car with the Mustang Ecoboost, you get 310 horsepower, 350 foot-pound of torque. It's rear-wheel drive, and it's pretty much any car enthusiast's dream. And not to mention the 2.3-liter 4-cylinder turbo engine, which has a very good tuning capabilities, which we'll touch later in the video. So as you can see, the price point, I mean, for $27,000 for getting all of that 310 horsepower rear-wheel drive, all that good stuff, I think it's an amazing deal to begin with. And if you're looking for a used one too, they happen to be a lot of rental Mustangs, and they unfortunately are Mustang Ecoboost. So there's just a lot more competition for dealers. So even if in used market, you're going to find the prices to be a lot lower than the Mustang GT. So if you're looking for a used deal, you're definitely going to see a significant difference between the Mustang GT versus the Mustang Ecoboost for the used car pricing. Now, next up on my list is actually the insurance. So it also goes in hand with the pricing of it. Mustang Ecoboost insurance is generally going to be a lot cheaper than the Mustang GT because the GT's obviously got a V8 and just going to command a higher insurance premium. If you're a relatively young buyer, you're definitely going to see significant difference. Now, if you're someone older, then yes, you may not see much of a difference, but it's also kind of hard to pinpoint what's going to impact your insurance rate. There's just so many variables that go into it, so I can't really tell you that GT is obviously going to be much cheaper or not. So it would depend on your individual scenario, but ideally or realistically, you should see the insurance rates to be much cheaper on the Mustang Ecoboost versus the Mustang GT. I mean, it's got 310 horsepower rear-wheel drive. It's an amazing car, amazing performance car. The insurance doesn't have to know about it once you start tuning it, and you get a cheaper rates compared to the Mustang GT. Alright, so as you can see, the trend has been that the Mustang Ecoboost is cheaper to own, it's cheaper to get into. But the third reason on my list is actually performance related, as I mentioned earlier. Mustang Ecoboost, I feel like in a stock form handles better than the GT, and that's before you kind of get on me. This is not, I'm not talking about track driving or I'm not talking about autocross. In terms of daily back roads and just throwing the car around, I just felt like it was a lot more tossable than the Mustang GT I currently own. And that's because there's no massive V8 under the hood, so you feel it's about like, what, 200, 300 pounds shaved off of the front of the car, and you can definitely notice that difference. I know I personally noticed it compared to my GT, where it does feel a bit heavier with the V8 under the hood compared to the Mustang Ecoboost. And that's something you're really going to notice if you've always been into that JDM crowd or one of the lighter imports. Basically, Mustang GT weighs like close to 4,000 pounds. So if you're used to cars that are like low 3,000 pounds, you're definitely going to notice a difference if you were to step into Mustang GT in terms of how heavy it is. But Mustang Ecoboost kind of balances that out. Alright, so next up is the gas mileage, which is no surprise to anyone right here because we're comparing a 5-liter V8 versus the 2.3 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. So for city gas mileage, Ecoboost is going to be seeing 21 city, 32 highway, and 25 combined versus the GT, which would be 15 city, 24 highway, and 19 combined. I personally have seen up to 27 miles per gallon on the highway on my personal 2019 Mustang GT, but that's not the point. I feel like Ecoboost will still come out ahead if you're doing long road trips and all of that stuff. Now, if you were to do some standard calculations with 12,000 miles and about $350 a gallon, you would come out about $500 ahead for the EcoBoost versus the GT. So that adds up. It can be your mod money and all of that stuff. So it's very crucial that if you're going to be using the EcoBoost, especially for commuting and all that stuff, it's going to be much better than and cost effective than the Mustang GT would be. Alright, so the last step on my list on why I think the Mustang EcoBoost is better than Mustang GT is going to be the modifications. Now I know Mustang GTs, you can make tons of power without messing with the internals of the engine and all that stuff. They can reliably hold 700-800 wheel horsepower compared to the Mustang EcoBoost. However, for a street-driven car, the Mustang Ecoboost just tends to do a lot better in terms of bang for your buck, just for the fact because it has a turbocharged engine. So like a $500 tune is going to result in a lot more horsepower than the Mustang GT could. And of course, you can swap out for a bigger turbo, and you can get a lot more performance because it's already set up. You just got to swap out the turbos. So like for $2-3 grand, you can swap out the turbos, and you could probably put 450, 500 wheel horsepower without a problem. Now, of course, can you beat a stock Mustang GT with the stock Mustang EcoBoost? No, even a $500 tune and maybe a couple bolt-ons, you're not going to be able to beat stock GTs, and definitely not a lightly modified GT. Even if you swap the turbos out, GTs can still add a supercharger stuff. So you're never going to be able to beat Mustang GTs for like a similar dollar spend per modification. But with the fact that the tunes are so much cheaper, you result in like a lot of more power compared to the Mustang GT or like the stock Mustang EcoBoost. You're just going to have a lot more fun with that car on a street-driven car. Of course, if your goal is track or drag strip, then you're not going to be getting much benefit going Mustang EcoBoost versus the Mustang GT. Because if your overall goal is to beat Mustang GTs, you're better off starting with a better platform than the Mustang EcoBoost. But this is for someone who is going to be treating the Mustang EcoBoost as their street-driven car, the daily driver, and just want to have a little bit of fun. So you can spend maybe $500 to $1,000 on a couple minor bolt-ons and the tune, and it's going to result in a lot more fun of a drive with the Mustang EcoBoost than what you would get if you were to spend maybe $500 to $1,000 on a Mustang GT. You're going to be close to 360, 370 wheel horsepower. These motors love to make torque, so you're going to have a lot of torque that you can kind of play around with in terms of the back roads and just having more fun with your Mustang EcoBoost overall. Alright, so overall you can see the cost of ownership and even the entry point significantly cheaper than the Mustang GT, and that seems to be the overall theme as to why the Mustang EcoBoost is better than Mustang GT in my opinion. Even the handling thing that I mentioned earlier in the video. Of course, it's still a lower trim than the Mustang GT, so if you're planning on modifying it to beat Mustang GTs, I feel like it kind of defeats the purpose because you spend all that much money to be just at Mustang GT levels when you could have just started with Mustang GT. Obviously, Mustang EcoBoost serves its purpose by, if you kind of look at it as a standalone Mustang that has 310 horsepower, good tuning potential, and it's rear-wheel drive, so you can still have some fun, and you're going to be doing it at significantly cheaper than what a Mustang GT would cost you. I personally feel like if the Mustang EcoBoost did not have the Mustang name associated with it, it would be wildly successful. I mean, for $27,000 base, you're getting a 310 horsepower car with the rear-wheel drive, turbocharged engine with massive tuning potential, and also a lot of aftermarket support. It's pretty much what a car enthusiast wants, and all of that can be had for under $30,000. Unfortunately, the Mustang GT exists, and because of that, I feel like the Mustang EcoBoost just doesn't get the spotlight that it deserves from car enthusiasts, solely because it's the lesser of the Mustangs. While the Mustang GT may be better in many reasons, I feel like if the budget is an issue, or matter of fact, you don't think you're going to need the GT power levels, I think it's a great buy. Mustang EcoBoost is a very great buy. I personally highly recommend Mustang EcoBoost over GT for the reasons we mentioned, especially if you're a young car enthusiast just starting out. You don't want a heavy car payment. You don't want to have your insurance to be high and gas mileage and all that stuff. You got to play smart, get the Mustang EcoBoost, have fun with the car, learn about the mechanics of the car, learn the tuning potential, and then maybe down the road, once your insurance kind of settles down and you make a lot more money, you can upgrade to Mustang GT. Well, guys, that's pretty much what I have for why I personally think Mustang EcoBoost is better than a Mustang GT, and that's coming from a Mustang GT owner. I just tell it like it is. I feel like those are some of the key considerations when buying a new car, and Mustang EcoBoost just frankly kind of takes the edge compared to the Mustang GT. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you smash that like button and comment below what you think about the Mustang EcoBoost. And as always, subscribe to Red 50 for more videos.